97, 98. Okay. Yeah, because if we have the answers, then it's easy. Okay. So you studied the vocabulary. I'm gonna check your glossary on the weekend because I was on the class, so I couldn't check it. But let me help you with some answers, okay? Take a note. I'm gonna play the video and try to find the answers to some of the questions. Read the questions first so you can get familiar with them.
Alone?
Alone? What do you mean alone?
In
By yourself?
No. Read for me or for you?
Oh, yes, for me too, because I can check your pronunciation.
Okay.
Yes.
What is the verb to read?
Oh, out loud. It's a description. Out loud.
Out loud.
Yes.
Okay.
Read it out loud. Come on.
How did the Apple Google partnership start?
Mhm.
How did the Apple Google partnership become dense?
Mhm.
Okay. How have both companies expanded into each other businesses since then?
Watch out. It doesn't say each other.
Others?
Read it again.
How have both companies expanded into each other's
Mhm.
businesses since then?
Right.
How has ad revenue from Google helped Apple's ambitions?
Good. Pronunciation helping pass?
Helped.
Perfect. One more time.
How has ad revenue from Google helped Apple's ambitions?
Nice.
Describe the current legal process that Apple and Google are facing nowadays.
Watch out. Nowadays pronunciation?
Nowadays?
Nowadays. The A sounds. Nowadays. You want to check?
Exists the word nowadays together?
No.
Oh,
You always say nowadays, no?
embarrassing.
Welcome. Embarrassing. Check it out. This is a B2 word at the present time. You can say at the present time, no? But the real expression is now.
Nowadays.
Nowadays. That's correct.
Yes. In my vocabulary.
Nowadays.
In my vocabulary, I wrote wrong.
Oh, okay. Okay, we need to change that.
Yes.
Definitely.
Okay.
Right, number 6.
Describe the current legal process that Apple and Google are facing nowadays.
Watch out. Pronunciation. This
In
one.
which? Oh, nowadays?
This one.
Describe?
Describe. You said describe.
Oh, describe the current legal process that Apple and Google are facing nowadays.
Nice. Perfect. Number 6.
Which side will be the most affected by the antitrust lawsuit result? What's the negative part of alternative search engines for Apple?
Perfect. And that's the one. Okay. Try to get some information to answer these questions. I'm going to play the video again and try to take notes. 1, 2, 3.
You've probably asked the question before. iPhone or Android? Apple Maps or Google Maps? Safari or Chrome? On the surface, Apple and Google represent the ultimate tech rivalry. But behind the scenes, executives have maintained a multi-billion-dollar partnership that benefits them both massively.
I would describe Apple and Google as the classic example of frenemies. On one hand, they're fierce rivals. On the other hand, they benefit greatly from figuring out ways to work together.
Google pays Apple an estimated $8 to $12 billion a year, or a third of Alphabet's annual profits, to make sure it's the default search engine on more than 1 billion Apple devices. That deal has helped Google dominate the search market. In recent years, it's accounted for 90 to 95% of search engine queries in the US. The deal between the two tech giants is so powerful that it's at the center of one of the biggest US government lawsuits against a public company since the 90s. So, how did two of Silicon Valley's biggest rivals come to form one of tech's most valuable partnerships? To understand Apple and Google's frenemy relationship, you have to go back to the beginning.
In the early days, they were quite close. At the time, the CEO of Google was on Apple's board. It was part of the Silicon Valley club, if you will.
In 2005, the two companies laid the groundwork for what would become one of the industry's biggest deals. Google struck a deal with Apple to become the default search engine for Safari on Mac computers.
As Apple evolved, so did the relationship. In 2007, when the iPhone came out, Google was then the default search for the iPhone Safari browser, and it's really just grown and grown from that point.
So Steve, I've had the privilege of joining the board, and there's a lot of relationships between the boards. And I thought, if we just sort of merge the companies, we could call them Apple Goo.
As it became clear that Google was going to be more than just a search engine and that it wanted to grow, and that Apple was going to be a rival, that became an issue.
In 2008, Google directly challenged Apple's business with the launch of its Android operating system. The next year, Google's CEO Eric Schmidt resigned from Apple's board. Since then, both companies have expanded into each other's businesses, with Google launching Android phones and Apple launching services like the App Store and Siri, which was originally powered by Microsoft's Bing, not Google.
Search Wikipedia for Neil Armstrong.
Searching for Neil Armstrong.
It wasn't until 2017 that Apple switched from Bing to Google for its search results on Siri and Spotlight, the Mac's search function. That renewed deal between Apple and Google came at a good time for both companies. Google was facing competition from Facebook's fast-growing mobile ad revenue, and its new deal with Apple put its search results and ads on more than 1 billion Apple devices. Now, up to half of Google's searches come from Apple devices.
When you open up your iPhone and go to Safari and write something that you want to search for, boom, you're going to Google. And that's a lot of value.
For Apple, the deal has benefited its business twofold. First, it got more consistent search results across Safari, Siri, and Spotlight. But perhaps more importantly, the money it gets from Google's ad revenue makes up 15 to 20% of Apple's annual profits. That's helped fund Apple's ambitions to grow its services unit, which has driven growth for the company over the past few years.
Apple is like a store. It's selling its shelf space, the primo shelf space. And so when you go into a store and you see those candy bars right there at the register, that's the place to be if you're selling candy bars. And so for Google, they're in that default spot.
Now, all of that money and search traffic could be at risk because of this lawsuit. In October, the US Department of Justice sued Google over antitrust concerns. The government is alleging that Google is a monopoly gatekeeper for the internet, and it says that harms customers, advertisers, and competing tech companies. One way the Justice Department says Google maintains its dominance is through exclusive business deals, like through its partnership with Apple. According to the lawsuit, some people at Google called the prospect of losing its default status on Apple devices code red. Google representatives said they weren't aware of the code red language used in the lawsuit, and neither Apple or Google have officially disclosed the exact value of the deal or commented on the Justice Department's $8 to $12 billion projection. In a recent interview, the journal's personal tech columnist Joanna Stern asked Google's former CEO about the deal.
There was ultimately a deal that I did not personally negotiate, but it was a lucrative deal for Apple. But important to say that with respect to Google and with respect to use of Google search on Apple phones, it is extremely easy to switch to another provider.
Google has denied the Justice Department's allegations and said it plans to challenge the lawsuit. Its chief legal officer said the lawsuit wouldn't help consumers and that its relationship with Apple is customary. Apple hasn't officially commented on the lawsuit. So, what happens if the Justice Department is successful in its case?
This could drag out for many years. This is an interesting situation. In some ways, if the DOJ is successful, one of the companies that might be harmed the most here is Apple, given the fact that they perhaps have 15 or 20% of their profit coming from this relationship.
Of course, there are other search engines out there, like Bing, DuckDuckGo, Baidu, and Yandex, but none of them even come close to Google's dominance. Some financial analysts say that if anyone can give Google a run for its money, it's Apple. And the antitrust lawsuit might just be the push Apple needs to divorce itself from Google.
We don't know exactly where Apple is going with its future plans here. Some have speculated that potentially this would be a good reason for Apple to develop its own search engine. Others have said potentially they might buy a search engine to beef up that capability. One of the things we know about Apple over the years is that it likes to own its core competencies so it can control those worlds. And so, that's always kind of hanging in the background.
Apple hasn't responded to requests for comment on plans to create or purchase its own search engine. Still, a breakup of this multi-billion-dollar partnership between Apple and Google could deal a financial blow to two of the world's biggest companies. And however this relationship plays out in the future has the potential to shape the way billions of people use the internet.
As we see Congress and regulators debate the power of tech, this lawsuit is just yet another example of kind of that public debate about their role in our future and in our society.
So what's the problem? I see you worried. I see you kind of worried on the language. Is it difficult?
No, I just noticed that I misunderstood a sentence before.
Nice.
Yes.
And you understood it better thanks to your review in the vocab.
I think so.
That's great. That's great. The thing about this video is that there's a lot of technicalities that can seem a little bit more complex, but at the end it's very, very simple language. It's person verb complement. It's the same logic as the previous videos, just with more technical words. Okay, which question do you have answers to?
Maybe the first.
Okay.
Number one, how did the Apple-Google partnership start?
What would be your answer?
I got that at the beginning, Apple chose
in present, in past?
chose,
Very good.
chose the Google search engine
Okay.
as a default.
Nice. Okay. Okay, that is correct, but that is not the direct answer to this. Because that like we're talking about a partnership, and the partnership is talking about the business deals. Okay, the default search engine is not really a partnership. It's more like a selection or software application. Okay, let's listen to that section when it starts over here. Here, attention.
They were quite close. At the time, the CEO of Google was on Apple's board. It was part of the Silicon Valley club, if you will.
In 2005, the two companies laid the groundwork for what would become one of the industry's biggest deals. Google struck a deal with Apple to become the default search engine for Safari on Mac computers.
Oh, okay. You refer to this section.
Yes.
You are correct. Oh my God. Yes, you are totally correct. I was thinking in the other section when we talk about the CEOs, but definitely you are correct in this section. Sorry, that was totally correct. Let's complement it. Okay. What happened in the early days? Let's talk about, let's collocate the information that you have.
Apple evolved, so did
I'm going to help you with become the default search engine for Safari.
In Macs?
Nice. What is a connector for platforms and digital sections?
On.
Excellent. So the
On
default search engine
on Macs computers.
That's right, Mac computers.
Mac computers.
You need to use Mac without an S because the S is not necessary in adjectives. In this case, Mac is an adjective for computer. Okay. The plural goes in computers. Let's go back and let's listen to him.
as it became clear that Google was going to be more than just a search engine and that it wanted to grow. Apple was going to be a rival, that became an issue.
In 2008, Google directly challenged Apple's bid.
No, that's a different section. 122. 122.
They were quite close. At the time, the CEO of Google was on Apple's board. It was part of the Silicon Valley club.
What is this?
The CEO of Google was part of the Silicon Valley? Something like that. Was.
All right, you're close. Let's complement it. One more time.
Yeah, they were quite close. At the time, the CEO of Google was on Apple's board. It was.
Couldn't hear you.
At the time, the CEO of Google was.
Yes.
Oh, I forgot.
You forgot.
Yes.
That's so much information. Okay, that's it. No problem. We have 3 chances. You had a lot of information, and the principal part was nice. The default search engine for Safari was Mac computers. Let's help Elsie, girls. Jesse, Mitch, you're gonna help Elsie complete this sentence, okay? Let's start with Jess. Are you there, girl?
Yes.
Perfect. Let's listen. 1, 2, 3, action.
Quite close. At the time, the CEO of Google was on Apple's board.
Something like at outboard sport,
Okay.
but I am not
The word board is correct, but what is board?
board.
Let me check if the word board is over here. Yes, it is over here. It's number 4.
Board, yes. A group of people who have a power to make decisions and control company or other organization.
Do you understand what is board?
Yes, maybe with the other word, not really, but the meaning, yes.
What? What other word? What do you mean?
How do you say synonym?
Synonym.
Synonym, yes. Maybe
Okay. You
I
cannot find
can
a
think
synonym.
in other synonym, but
Mhm.
I understood the meaning.
What's the meaning? What? How can you paraphrase this word?
You've
A group of people to have the power, the same, to take decision or maybe discuss about other companies or
Okay.
them
The
their
director,
companies maybe.
their companies. You're talking about presidents, financial advisors, CEOs, all these people who work on this,
Yes.
right? Well, let's complete that because with that word, you can identify what's missing. The CEO of Google was, and then we have another word. This is a group of directors, and this is a CEO. There is a relation. Want to listen again?
Yeah, they were quite close. At the time, the CEO of Google was on Apple's board.
Was I on a other word and board?
Okay, the connector on is right. And that's it. Why cannot you identify the word? Do you understand the question?
Yes.
What does the question mean? Try to explain it.
How? Yes, how? Yes, how Apple and Google become partnership.
Partners.
Okay, partners. Yes.
Partners. That has a close relation to the boards of each company.
Yes, I understood the answer too, but not the listening. So I imagine they were in a board, on a board, and they
Whose
discuss
board?
and they discuss and become partner.
Correct. Whose board were they? In which board?
In which?
Most importantly, which company's board?
Okay, on Apple.
Yes. Now
On Apple.
give me the correct conjugation to speak about the possessive of the word, the possession of the word. How do you express possession in English?
But about I don't know.
Yes.
Apple's board.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's a mysterious word. Confirmation.
Of Google was on Apple's board.
Yes, Apple's board.
You see?
Yes.
That's why it was like, if you understood word, it was like impossible not to understand this mysterious word.
Yeah.
The CEO of Google was on Apple's board. This means that the CEO of Google was in the group of people who took decisions in Apple.
Yes.
Mhm. That's the first section. Very good. Yes. Let's continue with Mitch. Mitch, continue the answer.
Hi. Yes.
Club, if you will. Board, quite close. At the time, the CEO of Google was on Apple's board. It was part of the Silicon Valley club, if you will.
It was part of the Silicon Valley Club.
Mhm. Very good. The Silicon Valley Club.
I heard something that you will.
Yes. And why did he say you will?
I don't remember. Sorry.
Okay. There is a word in the vocabulary that expresses, it's an idiomatic expression that people say when you are inviting a person to use a term.
Oh, it was the chunk, if you will.
Exactly.
Okay.
Do you understand its application? How would you use it?
We must see the video to understand why Google and Apple form a partnership.
Oh, but you're not answering.
If you will. If you will.
Ah, you're making an example.
Yes or no?
You need to watch the video in order to understand how Google made an partnership, if you will. Not really, because the word partnership is common. The word, if you will, is used when you invite another person to use an unusual term. What will be an unusual term? Something that is not the official name of something. It's something that I invented, you know? In this case, the Silicon Valley Club. The Silicon Valley Club is not an official club, but he invented like as a reference to speak about these massive people, the CEO of Google, the director of Apple, you know, massive people in Silicon Valley.
Okay. Okay. But it's how do you say
A saying, an expression.
Okay. Yes.
No. That is the application. So you say, you hear this expression when people say, for example, what would be? English is a very important language across the countries. Mexico receives a lot of American people. We can say that Mexico has been Americanized, if you will.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I'm inventing terminologies, and then I invite you to use the same terminology.
Okay. but that it doesn't exist really.
Exactly. The expression doesn't
Okay.
exist, but it gives you a notion of what is happening. It gives you an idea.
Ah, okay.
The Silicon Valley Club, if you will. Next part. Connect the rest of the information.
CEO of Google was on Apple's board. It was part of the Silicon Valley club, if you will.
In 2005, the two companies laid the groundwork for what would become one of the industry's biggest deals. Google struck a deal with Apple to become the default search engine for Safari on Mac computers.
Focus on the last sentence, the one of the search engine.
Well, after the sentence, if you will, in 2005. The two companies. And I don't remember the rest.
No problem. Final repetition.
Was then the default search for the iPhone. So did the relationship.
Safari on Mac. Google struck a deal with Apple to become the deals. Google struck a deal with Apple.
Of Google, part of the Silicon Valley club, if you will.
In 2005, the two companies laid the groundwork for what would become one of the industry's biggest deals.
Two companies laid the ground. Groundwork.
Nice. That's it. Lay the groundwork. Right? To lay the groundwork is another way to say to create a foundation of a massive project. You know, it's like the first steps or the stepstone of a bigger project.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. So you helped us a lot. Let's continue with Elsie. Right? You're going to complete the sentence. What happens in 2005?
Industry's big,
if you will.
In 2005, the two companies laid the groundwork for what would become one of the industry's biggest deals.
The two companies lay the groundwork to something.
To something, okay. One more time.
Apple
Defaults the industry's big. In 2005, the two companies laid the groundwork for what would become one of the industry's biggest deals.
For that it'll become the biggest deal.
Okay, deal almost there. It's not deal because we are talking about not one. We are talking about multiple.
Deals.
Correct. The last word is deals. Okay, This is a little contradictory because you have the. So we need to identify the form to connect this correctly. Okay. Second repetition.
And the default search for the iPhone evolved, so did the
Safari on groundwork.
They were quite close. At the time, the CEO of Google was on Apple's board. It was part of the Silicon Valley club, if you will.
In 2005, the two companies laid the groundwork for what would become one of the industry's biggest deals. Google struck a deal with Apple to become the default search engine.
No.
That was confusing, right?
Become. Four. After 4, I heard something with ill. It beacon.
For eel? I don't know what.
It. No. For. No, sorry, I can't.
Okay. Okay. Well, the phonetic eel has, I don't know in what the specific word you are listening, that phonetic, because the word in 2005, the two companies laid the groundwork for. And then we have very different phonetics. Probably the only word that has this phonetic is the word deal. That is all the way back here.
Okay.
Before that, there is no ill. I'm going to help you. Before the final repetition, let me ask you, what is the modal verb we use to talk about memories in the past?
Memories in the past.
Expressing memories in the past. A moment. Yes. Auxiliary. It's a modal. That's going to be my help. A modal for memories in the past.
Would.
Yes. If you are talking would in past, you're talking about something that happened. Okay, let's listen again.
Directly.
That it wanted to grow. It's clear that Google was
Google.
Google, so did the
Industry's biggest. In 2005, the two companies laid the groundwork for what would become one of the industry's biggest deals.
What?
Yes.
Would.
Yes.
What will become?
Yes.
Become in?
Become in. No, that's Spanglish. We never use become in English.
Okay.
That's it, girl. Good job. Okay. Let's go with Jessie. Help us, Jess. One more time.
at the time,
Deal with Apple to become the default search engine groundwork for what would become.
if you will.
In 2005, the two companies laid the groundwork for what would become one of the industry's biggest deals.
One of the industry's biggest.
Very good. Okay, complete idea.
Okay. In 2005,
Yes.
the two companies laid the groundwork for what would become
Mhm.
the one
Whoa. The one. Eliminate the.
become one
Aha.
become one of the industry biggest
Yes.
deal.
In almost. Oh my God. Industry biggest deals. Okay. Similar to what happened to the board.
Mhm.
Whose biggest deals are we talking about?
Apple and Google.
Wrong. We are talking about the industry. The
Okay, okay.
biggest deals in the industry.
Okay.
Transform this into a possessive.
Okay. Biggest? Just because it's of industry.
Uh-huh.
Industries biggest?
Yes. Industries
Biggest.
biggest deals. This gives you context of the deal, of what's going on. In 2005, the two companies laid the groundwork. They established the main foundational stones for one of the biggest deals in the industry. In other words, one of the industry's biggest deals is the same concept, but is inverted.
Okay.
You see, every time you talk about the connector off, remember that you can switch it with apostrophes. Got it?
Yes.
Good job, girl. Good job, eh? You got this very, very well. Now, be careful. At the beginning, you were going to say the one of the industries.
Yes.
Okay, you need to understand that's completely
Yes.
like doesn't exist. So just focus on the construction. So finally, what was the biggest, one of the biggest deals in the industry, Mitch? You're going to tell me the last part. Ready? Let's go.
In 2005, the two companies laid the groundwork for what would become one of the industry's biggest deals. Google struck a deal with Apple to become the default search engine for Safari on Mac computers.
I'm sorry.
No problem, Mitch.
My microphone was mute.
Okay.
Google struck a deal
Aha.
with
Who?
Apple.
Okay.
Google,
Mhm.
I heard struck.
Correct.
I am right?
Totally
Okay.
right. The past of strike
A
is
strike,
struck.
okay.
Mhm.
Okay. A deal with Apple.
With Apple. Finally,
To become
perfect. To become what?
the default search engine for Safari or Mac computers.
Fantastic job. This answer was a total teamwork. This
Yay.
answer is not easy, but you did it, girls. Good job. Okay, that was at the beginning of the deal. When imagine this is 2007. The first iPhone was in 2007. before Android phones, before all these types, the BlackBerry was massive in that time. So we are talking about very different times. Later, something happened. That's when question 2 comes into place. How did the Apple-Google partnership become tense? So this was, everything was happy, happy, happy. And number 2 is like, uh-oh, problems. That's the next section. But let's give a moment to Jessie because Jessie is in the chat. Hello, Jessie. Good night.
Hello, good
Hi.
night. So I will get attendance. Is here Jessie? Good night, Jessie.
Good night.
Thank you. Elsie? Hi, Elsie. Good
Hola.
night.
Hello.
Hello, good night. And Mish. Hi, Mish. Good night.
Hi, Jessie.
Thank you. Thank you, girls, to be here. And have a good night.
There you
Likewise.
go. Thank you very much.
See you.
That's it. How did the Apple-Google partnership become tense? Elsie, what do you remember about it?
I remember that Google resigned the deal and launched his own system.
Nice.
Operative system.
Much better. And
And
that's it.
okay.
That's it. That's perfect. Now let's fix your speech because the word resign is not the action of finishing a contract. You know, the word resign is similar, is the contrary of getting fired. In a company, when you get fired, the director decides that you don't work there anymore. If you resign, you quit. So you are correct. Yes, Google resigned, but resigned what?
Resign Apple?
Exactly. Apple's board in detail. Google resigned Apple's board and they decided to have independency. Right? Let's listen to the set.
That became an issue.
In 2008, Google directly challenged Apple's business with the launch of its Android operating system.
Google challenge? Google challenge. And that's it.
And that's it. Okay. Repetition.
Google directly challenged
search engine and that it wanted to grow and that Apple was going to be a rival, that became an issue.
In 2008, Google directly challenged Apple's business with the launch of its Android operating system.
Google directly challenge
Correct.
Apple's business with launch with launch.
The first pronunciation was better.
Launch. Like a
like a launch, exactly.
And I think that in the beginning said in 2008.
Correct. Be careful. It's at the beginning, not in the beginning.
At the beginning,
Mhm.
2008. Come, okay, challenge, continue with the system opera. No. With no.
That's it. Okay. Second repetition. And no, final repetition.
Issue.
In 2008, Google directly challenged Apple's business with the launch of its Android operating system.
With the launch of
Mhm.
operate system. His operating system.
Okay, that was a very important.
It's
If you say his, you are saying that the company is masculine, but companies have no gender. Aha.
launch of the its
Eliminate that.
operate.
Operate is incorrect. There is another terminology for Windows, Android, iOS.
Operative.
Correct.
Ah.
You shot Holy Mary, and that was correct. Yes, it was a touchdown. Operative system.
It's
Correct. Complete the sentence, Jesse.
To be a rival, that became an issue.
In 2008, Google directly challenged Apple's business with the launch of its Android operating system.
Android operate system.
Pronunciation?
Well, Android, but I am not how to pronounce operate.
Okay, so you need to pay attention to the previous partners because the previous partners pronounced it correctly. Pronunciation?
Operative.
Exactly.
Operative.
Oh, wait.
Can you repeat?
Better here because the pronunciation is no, but it's not operating. Oh, in the dictionary is operating.
Teacher,
Yes, Mitch.
I hear
You hear operating with ing?
yes.
I have operating system in my notes. Let me check. Whoa.
Eric Schmidt
That Google was issue.
of its Android operating system.
It's operating, not operative. So you were very, yes, oh my God. I usually say operative system and I am speaking in Spanglish.
Yes, teacher, but
Very bad. Very, very bad.
Bad teacher.
No. I will take a classes, please, for Pinky Promise. Okay. Well, at least in my notes I have operating. Okay. So minimum the past Fernando had it right. The present Fernando is confused and exhausted. Okay. So pronunciation, yes.
I think it's operate. I don't know now.
You don't know now? Okay.
Operate.
Here it is.
But it's operating.
It's not I, it's
Operating.
operating. Correct.
Okay.
Operating.
Operating.
Operate. Okay. Operating system.
Exactly. Operating. Every time when you talk about your iPhone, and when they talk about iOS, this is technically the terminology for operating system. You see? Windows is an OS, Android is an OS, and the famous iOS for iPhone. Okay. Final repetition.
Okay.
Yes.
In 2008, Google directly challenged Apple's business with the launch of its Android operating system.
So, yes.
Yes. I think it's all.
It's all, but you haven't said it.
I have what?
You haven't said it.
Okay. In 2008, Google directly changed.
Oh, what did Google do?
Challenge.
Okay.
Sorry, challenge Apple business.
Whose business?
Apple's
okay.
business with the launch of its Android operating system.
Yes. There you have it, girls. We finished for today. Any question? Very good, girls. All right. See you tomorrow for your evaluation. Remember that it's going to be 1 hour. Try to make it as fast as possible so you can go to rest early.
Teacher, tomorrow is the listening and the writing. Okay, all the exam? Or...
Yeah, all together. It's going to be all together. Okay.
Okay.
The listening is not similar to the previous. You were in the previous evaluations.
Not really.
No, in the previous evaluations.
But it's similar like the other course of B2, right?
Exactly. It's a Google form and an exercise at the end.
Okay.
Okay. Good job, girls. Have a very good night.
See you, teacher.
See you.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Night to
See you
all.
tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.